So just to let you know what the plan is today, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to drain the system down, drain all the coolant out, and then when I've done that I'm going to remove the thermostat, and I'm going to check that the thermostat works. But the other reason I'm going to remove the thermostat is because I'm going to use a coolant flush product, and I'm going to flush all the old crud and dirt and rust out of the engine. Once we've done that, I'm going to take the radiator off, and I'm going to reinstall a new water pump, and then we're going to put a new radiator in again, and also install new hoses and all that kind of thing. This actually looks okay, there's no kind of dirt or milky goo in it, so give it a clean while it's off. Well, one of the reasons we're doing this job today is because I don't know if you've noticed in some of the previous videos, when I drive down the road the water pump really badly squeals on this, and the reason it squeals I've eventually found out is because the water pump has got the wrong pulley on it. Now I did have the idea of pressing the pulley off and just putting a new pulley on, but to be honest I didn't have a press and all that seemed like quite hard work, so I've actually gone ahead and I've just ordered the correct water pump that has got the right width of pulley on, which I think I'm going to go off the top of my head now and say it should be 3/8, whereas this one, I don't know, I'm going to say it's 1/4. It's certainly a lot wider anyway, and so the belt sits at the bottom of the groove rather than sitting on the shoulders, so whenever you accelerate it just squeals. When I drove this vehicle home on the motorway, and I've got to admit maybe at some speed because I wasn't used to driving it, I did have some problems with coolant leaking out, and you always assume the worst, like head gaskets and things like that, and this truck did come with a separate cylinder head, so there's obviously been some shenanigans in the past, but the radiator cap was split open, and if you actually look inside here, for some reason it looks as though somebody in the past has cut away the top of the radiator, the sealing surface. Now I can only guess that the reason somebody would do that is because maybe the head gasket was leaking and it was blowing the coolant out, so basically they purposely prevented the radiator from sealing, from pressurizing to let that gas out. So either way it's no good. The other thing that I found is that this little pipe here is cracked, which isn't a big job. This could be removed and soldered up, I could do that, but it's an old radiator, and again I looked at the cost of getting a radiator rebuilt here in the UK, and it wasn't so far off just buying a replacement radiator, or it wasn't until you counter the shipping costs from the USA, which was pretty much as the radiators cost me. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this radiator in as well. Here's a good radiator, and hopefully you can see that there's a complete ring there for the radiator cap to seal against, and actually even a little ridge. Well, for some reason unknown, that's been cut out on my old radiator, and I'm just going to guess that somebody's cut it out with the idea of stopping the system from pressurizing, but I am guessing. And just in case there's any Snap-on agents watching, I'm more than willing to prostitute myself for free tools. And it does look, I can see a thermostat in there, so that's a good sign. There's actually a thermostat in there. It's good to have a thermostat in it, because then when it does start overheating, you've got something to take out. It's okay, here's a thermostat. There's not much to say about that. It's a thermostat, and yeah. I thought there was a temperature rating printed on here. I can't see it. Made in the US of A, of course. So we'll give this a test in a jug of hot water in a little bit. And I'm going to temporarily just reinstate this now with some gasket goo. It's not going to be pretty, but it's only got to last long enough to flush the engine out. Well, I don't know about you, but being a man of a certain age, I think it's time I went and had a wee. Okay, so 140 degrees now, and is the thermostat moving? Nope, don't think anything's happened yet. Now it's got 160 printed on the side of it, so I'm guessing, or I'm hoping, that this thing's going to open up when it reaches 160. 152 degrees Fahrenheit. Can you feel the tension building? I'm starting to get quite excited. Come on, move. What does it say? Watch kettle never boils. Well, we've hit 160, and yep, nothing's happening. Oh, maybe it's opened and took me by surprise. Okay, I think it's just opened now. I think it didn't open till a bit later though. I think that was 169, maybe 170. The purpose of this is to allow the water to heat up into the engine until it gets to a certain temperature, at which point this opens up and it allows the hot water in your engine to flow out to the radiator and start to cool down. So basically it just regulates the temperature of your engine, because there is an optimum temperature when you know, the combustion takes place. You don't want your engine running very cold, and you equally well don't want it running so hot that the lubrication starts to break down. So this little valve opens and closes just to maintain the water at a set temperature. Well, that's the idea anyway. Most of the cars I've had, they've all had overheating problems, end up throwing them away, but that's the idea. I'll tell you what, we'll put this in some hot water and hopefully you'll see the thing open up. And there it goes. Can you see it opening? See, the inner ring has dropped away, so you can see through it now. Ow, that's very hot, he said, burning his hand. What I'll do, I'll just plunge it into some cold water and you'll see it, it'll look different. So there we go, it's closed up again. Well, I've gone ahead and drained out the antifreeze and I've flushed it a couple of times just with fresh water, and now I'm going to add some of this radiator flush, so hopefully that's going to clean out some of the gunk from inside the engine, etc. Now, as per the instructions, I'm just going to run the engine now for 10 minutes at idle and then drain it off. 10 minutes now, and I just thought we'd have a quick look at the temperature gauge. So you can see there that it's what is it? It's just over 100 degrees. I'm never sure. It seems to jump between 100 and, is that 180? So it's between 100 and 180. So it could be anything really, couldn't it? But it doesn't seem to be getting particularly hot at the moment. It is stationary, so there's not actually any wind today blowing through the radiator, so it's just relying on the cooling fan. We've got a little bit of oil pressure. We haven't got loads, have we? Goes up if we rev it a little bit. But it seems to be staying cool anyway. I was hoping we could actually get it a little bit hotter so that cleaning fluid could kind of do its job, because you know, temperature aids chemical reactions, doesn't it? But it is what it is. So we're going to run it for about another 5 minutes. So it'll have been run for about 15 minutes in total then, and then that'll do. So while we're waiting, here's an interesting cluster of pedals and controls. I'm still coming to terms with the handbrake or the parking brake. It's actually this pedal on the left. So what you've got to do is you've got to whenever you want to stop on a hill, you've got to press the parking brake on with your foot, and then to release the parking brake you pull this knob. And it isn't like you know, a handbrake in a car where you can release it gradually as you take up the clutch. Basically you just pull this lever and the handbrake is off, and then you're rolling back towards the expensive Mercedes which is behind you. So you've got to, before you do that, kind of find the balancing point on the clutch. I'm sure there's a little bit of knack to doing it, and maybe when you've had a bit of practice it's second thought, but it's certainly not second thought to me at the moment, and it's yeah, it's proving a little bit tricky. Well, it's getting a bit warm in here at the moment because I wanted to make sure that all that flush also went through the matrix on the heater. So we've got the heater turned fully on, so the valve under the bonnet, which lets the water into the heater matrix, that's controlled here, and we've got that turned fully on at the moment, so it's nice and toasty in the cab of this truck. How are we doing for time? Okay, 1 o'clock. We've been going about 15 minutes now. So in the Chevy manual it does recommend 20, so we'll give it another couple of minutes and then we're going to call it done. I'm going to let it cool down a bit and then I'm going to drain the fluid off. Well, it does look like that coolant flush has liberated some filth from within the engine block. It certainly looks quite cloudy and messy what's coming out, so I'm going to take that as a good sign. This radiator grill feels like a cheese grate on my knuckles. So I've just released the fan belt, so hopefully we can just go ahead and disconnect the water pump now. Missing one. Another short one. This fitting here is looking a bit worse for wear. I'm going to have to try and get another one of them. So remind me when we put this pump back on, we've got 2 long bolts at the top and 2 shorter ones at the bottom. So here's the pump that we've just taken off, and it is actually in very good condition, this, because I think it's a new pump. But the only problem with it was that this groove is just too wide to fit the belt. So just looking at the front pulley, you can see that the actual fan assembly itself, it's held together by some rivets, and these rivets are actually hitting the front pulley. So I'm not sure what we can do about that. Maybe we'll have to do a little bit of easing when we reassemble this. This water valve has also seen better days. I thought I'd ordered a replacement one of these, but it looks like I must have forgot. Oh, this is really boogered up. Yeah, at some point in the future we're going to have to buy another of these taps, because I'm afraid the mole grip brigade have been on this. Well, I don't know about you, but I really could do with tidying up my workbench, couldn't I? What I'm going to do is I'm going to just rub this down, and I'm going to give it a coat of paint because it's all a bit rusty and nasty at the moment. So give it a good rub down, and I think I'll paint it in some bright colour, make it less likely to get my hands stuck in it. Now, I've been sanding away at this fan blade and I've removed a lot of the old grease and rust and oil and stuff like that, and it's revealed a little bit of a crack here. Hopefully you can see that. I've just drawn a mark around it with a highlighter pen. Now, it's funny that I got a spare fan with this vehicle. Well, it wasn't a new one, it was an old fan, and the spare one had numerous cracks all around here, so I'm guessing that it's a bit of a common problem to get these fatigue cracks in these fans. So maybe at some point we'll have to look at replacing it, but that's not a job for today. Well, all I'm going to do today is I'm just going to keep cleaning it up and give it a coat of paint. And I decided to do this outside because I like to give all the passing insects something to perch on and walk across. Well, they're lovely and clean. I could eat my dinner off them. So here's a couple of the bolts that were being used to hold the fan on, and hopefully you can see that the threads on these are pretty boogered up, so we're not going to be reusing them, we're going to replace them with something better. Well, annoyingly I've got my chores to do, which is the rest of the afternoon strimming, so that's all the work on the Chevy for today. So that'll do. But I hope to see you again very soon, but bye bye for now.